Ariel also asked Rollins about keeping in touch with Roman Reigns and Jon Moxley. He said Roman and Mox were actually closer than he was with either of them, but they're all tight. They're all cool. They still check in with each other when they can. He put over Vince McMahon as a friend and a father figure, whatever creative issues he had with him over the Fiend stuff. He did put over Vince and said that he hasn't spoken with him since he got the text message on his phone that Vince was gone. He sent a message to Vince's corporate phone, which was disconnected right after. He has not heard from him or spoken with him since. And that's got to be weird. I mean, look, I was very excited, as a lot of people were. I'm sure many of you were, when the news came down that Vince McMahon was stepping aside. Finally, Vince McMahon was out of the picture, and Triple H was going to have the chance to take over creative. And it wasn't even that it was Triple H. Just the mere fact that we were going to have somebody other than Vince McMahon, who has been doing this for so many years, right? 70-something years old. A fresh pair of eyes with a fresh vision in charge of WWE main roster creative is exactly what this company and what this product needed. Long overdue. And it was exciting to think about what the future and what all these new storylines and characters might look like going forward. Nobody is taking away what Vince McMahon accomplished and what he built in this company and all the people he stepped on along the way. And would things have worked out exactly the same if there was no Vince McMahon? Probably not exactly the same. But if it wasn't Vince, it would have been somebody else. At some point, somebody would have gone national and there would have been that one dominant, company like WWE became. Would it have been as successful and lucrative? We'll never know. Maybe not. And you can credit Vince McMahon with a lot of things. But it's got to be weird for somebody like, Seth in this case. It's got to be weird that you work for this guy for so long, right? He did work with this person for 10 years. And he said, I met my wife and now I have working for him and I have a family and I have a beautiful daughter. And I'm sure he's making very good money, right? He's got a good life. Seth Rollins is living a charmed life right now. And so he's working with this man for 10 years that helped facilitate all of this. And one day he's here and the next day he's gone. It's like he's dead. It really is. It's like the man died. But the best part of the interview was how introspective he was about his place in the company and how much it clearly bothers him that he has never been viewed as the top guy in the company. And that's why he walks around with such a chip on his shoulder. He showed a vulnerability in this interview that you don't ever really see from top guys. He opened himself up in ways that I think a lot of the top guys over the years in WWE, they're going to portray a tough guy image. You would never have seen an interview like this from any of those people. He said, I just feel like I've never gotten my just due. It's always like, I've never been the guy, I've never been the one on the marquee at WrestleMania. It was John Cena, it was Roman Reigns. In some regards, when I was at Ring of Honor, it was Nigel McGuinness, it was Bryan Danielson. And I was always the guy on the come up or underneath. I was kind of the second or next big thing. That always just eats me. It eats at me so much. I don't know where that competitive spark comes from, but it drives me insane. The thing is, if I was that guy, I don't know if it would just go away. I would always find some way to put the chip there. It's just the way that I operate best. I have to have it for some reason in everything, for better or worse sometimes. There's a connection that you can get with the audience that you can work and cultivate over the years, and that equity will push you to the top of the card or a promotion, but being anointed the guy is not always that simple. So I don't know. The biggest thing is maybe I'm wrong, Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe there are people out there that draw more money and that perform better in the ring and sell more merch than I do, and I've got this inflated idea of myself. And that's the fear. That I'm just dead wrong. And so maybe that's the truth. Maybe that's just how it is, but I can't operate at optimum levels accepting that. I just can't do it. I pride myself on my work ethic and my hustle. I feel like if I just settled for saying, I'm just not good enough, or I'm just not as big of a star, or I can't be as big of a star as, say, Roman Reigns or Hulk Hogan or John Cena, then I would be doing myself a disservice. I would be doing the business a disservice, and I don't think I could go to sleep at night accepting being second best. So he says he felt a lot of imposter syndrome during his first run with the WWE title, and he still felt like the number 2 guy behind Roman Reigns, even though he pinned him to win the title at WrestleMania. And Ariel asked him if he feels like he's getting closer to that top spot. He said, "I don't know, man. I wonder often if, because I live in the Roman era, that it's just never going to happen. The only time I was even considered, I think, for the main event of WrestleMania was when Roman got leukemia and he was out from August until January or whatever, February. I was kind of second behind in the little babyface column there, and I got slotted in. I feel like it's one of those things. I'm like the best I can hope for is to be the Edge to his Cena or the Savage to his Hogan. Sometimes I feel like that's just the way the cookie crumbles. It doesn't mean I don't think I'm better than he is or that I can draw at that level. I certainly think all of those things, but it's not my sandbox. I don't make those decisions." When Roman came back from his leukemia relapse, there wasn't much time to build anything for him for WrestleMania, so he ended up in a match with Drew McIntyre in the middle of the card. Rollins is right in that 2019 was his year to get the top spot at WrestleMania. But a funny thing happened. His wife ended up taking that away from him. It would have been his first real WrestleMania main event. And I know it bothers him that he's never had a proper Mania main event. 2019 would have been it. It would have been him and Brock Lesnar, but they made the choice to headline with Becky and Ronda and Charlotte that year. And honestly, if it wasn't for Becky getting over like she did, I still think it would have been Charlotte and Ronda in that spot because they seemed set on promoting the first ever women's main event. But Becky getting over as big as she did made it a no-brainer. You got to put that woman in the main event. So he and Brock opened the show instead. But he's one of the only guys who can say that he beat Brock Lesnar twice in the same year. They had a much better match at SummerSlam that year when Rollins won back the Universal title. But even then, after beating Brock the second time, Rollins still never truly felt like the guy. That was still Roman Reigns. I don't even think Roman was on the SummerSlam card that year. And it still felt like Roman was the guy. You always knew that Roman Reigns was the chosen one. And if not Roman, then it was Brock. But it never felt like it was Seth Rollins. And that's got to eat away at him. Here's this guy in Roman Reigns who was new to all of this, right? I mean, obviously he's second generation. It runs in his family. But he used to play football. Now he's going to try the wrestling thing. He didn't come into the company with the experience that Seth Rollins had and that Jon Moxley had. But they put Roman with them for them to help get him over and get him the experience that he lacked because the decision was already made. It was already preordained. Just based on the way he looked. This is going to be our guy. This guy here is going to be the next John Cena. What's one of the first things Vince McMahon did with this guy when he brought him to television? Let's give him blue contact lenses. Look at his eyes, right? Doesn't he look the part? This is going to be our guy. Even though Rollins was much better than he was, it didn't matter. Roman was the shiny new toy. Seth was Woody. Roman was Buzz Lightyear. I'm sure that does gnaw away at him. But this was a great interview. It was very open, very honest, more than you would expect. It felt like a therapy session at times. Rollins has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of, though. He has had an incredible 10-year run so far, with at least another 10 to go. He came to the main roster. Think about this guy's career. He came to the main roster as part of the top heel faction on day one. He debuted at Survivor Series and interfered in the main event of that pay-per-view. He was a main eventer from day one. He was the one they chose to tear down the Shield. He was the one who cashed in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania and won the WWE title. Because they didn't think the fans were ready yet for Roman. They were rebelling against Roman, so they wanted to give him a little more time. So Seth got the nod. Seth was having a great heel run until he got hurt and he had to vacate the championship. I look at Seth Rollins a lot like how I look at Triple H. Triple H was never the guy. Right? There was always somebody else. It was Shawn Michaels or Stone Cold or The Rock or John Cena, but Triple H was never the guy. He was the guy that worked with the guy. But look at the career that Triple H had. The guy is a legend. He's done it all. Now he's running the fucking company. He's worked with everybody there is to work with. That's Seth Rollins. And I think that's how Seth Rollins will be remembered when his run is over. I don't think Rollins will ever truly be the poster child in WWE. But being the Randy Savage to Hulk Hogan or the Edge to John Cena, it's not a bad place to be. And you look at the way things turned out, Savage is a lot more fondly remembered today than Hulk Hogan is.